Hello, Gino. I wanted to go back to one of your photos and show you. We weren't finished with it yet. I wanted to show you some things. I also wanted to show you a nice feature of Snapseed, which you may know already, but I don't know what you do know and don't know. So I have about 25,000 or more photos. Well, as you can see, my recent says I have 27,919 photos. A lot of those are duplicates. I can tell you how I do something how I take pictures sometime. But I have a lot of photos. I sell on eBay too, so a lot of those are eBay photos. But I do have a lot, and it's sometimes hard to find one. And when I find it, it's kind of hard to get it into Snapseed because I don't want to have to run through all of the things in an album. So what I've done, have found, is that sometimes it's just easier once you find the photo, is to copy and paste it into Snapseed, and I'll show you that. If you see, I've made an album for yours. Every time I get one of yours, I put it into this album. And so I'm going to go in here, and this is the one I want to work on, is that cool shot of the cliff and the raft that we worked on, the perspective. So I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to go down to the upload arrow, copy photo, and then I'm going to go into Snapseed. I have all my editing stuff in one spot. And I tap anywhere to open a photo, and I paste image, and there it is. And that's a really nice feature once you have a lot of photos, so that when you find it, sometimes you have to find by places, searches. I'll show you that sometime. Not right now. Let's see. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to look at my view edits, up the little things up at the top, the stacked papers with the arrow. View edits, and we can see here's our original, perspective, and crop. We've already made a huge improvement with the perspective. Now, what I want to point out is that I just kind of like to do this, not always, but I do avoid HDR, but the one thing that I like to do, not always, there are instances where I don't do it, but in this particular one, this would really benefit a lot from tonal contrast. A lot of the outdoor shots definitely benefit from tonal contrast, and I usually just use the default value. I've played around with the sliders, and I really can hardly see any perceptual difference. If I really want to do something, I go into curves, but I don't really see a whole lot of difference with tonal contrast. Messing with the sliders and tonal contrast. So I'm going to take that, and now I'm just going to show you what a difference. Let's view the edits. I want to show you, there's our perspective. We did go out without that. The cropping got rid of the white along the edges. Now let me show you what tonal contrast does. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? That to that. It's just as good as I think it's just about as good as HDR, but it usually doesn't overdo it, which it's really easy to overdo the HDR. So I really love the tonal contrast. So that's the first thing that I would do. Now, I still have a problem over here on the right side where it's still pretty dark. The left side is very well lit, which is great. But the left side has this cool cliff with all of these neat, the trees and the structure of the rocks. So what I want to talk about today is I want to bring out the structure in the rocks, and I want to lighten up the right side. Now, before I do that, I've been using really the wrong term. I've been using the word masking, and that's really not accurate. When we go into superimpose, when we mask, what we're actually going to be doing is getting rid of the things that we don't want to show. Now, and what we're doing here is we're actually wanting to do edits. That brush is going to show us where we want the edits to be done. So I think the better phrase is selective editing. So instead of a masking, I'm going to start using, let's do a selective edit. So let's do a selective edit on the cliff to bring out all those details. So to do that, I'm going to go back on the arrow at the top left, go into Tools, go into Details, and I've got Structure. So now I've found that you can go pretty high with structure on rocks. Usually works pretty well. And this is one thing that you don't have to watch too much about overdoing it. However, You really should look at this on a bigger screen like an iPad or something like that to really know whether you're overdoing it. But we'll be conservative here and we'll stay at like 60. I might even, I wouldn't be afraid to go even up to 80. But let me show you what. Now we're just looking at the cliff. Because we're not going to worry what it does to the rest of the picture. Although it doesn't look bad on the rest of the picture for that matter. Okay. See the difference? There it was before, there it is after. Actually, the details kind of look good in the kind of make the water look good too. So I'll show you what we can do there. So I'm going to accept that. Now I'm going to go back into my view edits and I'm going to I'm going to touch the brush and I've got it currently at 100%. Now I'm going to show you just something. Let's leave the eye as white, the lower right, that eye. Let's leave that white for right now because I want to show you that as you do well, you can't really see it. I'll do it. You see, I just put the eye back on and you can see where I did it. Yeah, maybe that's a better way to teach you. I'll do it that way. And let's see, now I can take the eye off and we can see how that looks to us. Okay? Looks pretty good, right? Let's see what it looked like before. You won't let me do that in the brush. Okay? I think I like that it did put more detail in the water. Really brought out the shine of the brightness of the water. So what I'm going to do, but I don't want to do it too much. I want to be a little bit subtle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the details down to about 50 and see what that does. Let me put my thing on. Let me do this. I'm just going to do that on the water. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that stray just because I want you to see what I was doing. Okay, see what I've done to the water? I did that about 50%. Now let's take the eye back to white instead of blue. I think that looks pretty good. What do you think? We could get a little bit of detail on the bamboo. Let's do a little bit of detail on the bamboo. We might as well do some detail on the bamboo. Let's put that at 50%. A lot of this is just playing. Now, if you notice that the 50% is lighter, it's not, the 100% is a deeper color of red, and it gets a lighter color as you're doing it. Let's go up along here. The one thing I don't like to do is I don't like to do details on the sky. I'll tell you why. That's when if you do details on the sky, it starts to look pretty fake. I am actually going to put it back down to 0 because I see a little bit. I'm going and I'm clearing a little bit. I don't like to have any of it on the sky because I've found that does not work very well. So I'm just going to get rid of that. And let's see what this looks like with the eye off. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Do you think that looks pretty sharp? I think it looks pretty sharp. So I'm going to hit the check mark down at the bottom and accept that. Now the next thing that I'm going to do, and I kind of like to do details first because details has a tendency to lighten whatever it is that you're using the details on. So before I adjust anything with the brightness or anything over on the right side, I wanted to get the details done because it will lighten it up some more. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to do my tools and I'm going to do you can either do it with brush or tune image. I think the brush, I don't like brush because it goes a little bit overboard. It's hard to get it fine-tuned, so I end up using tune image. And I'm basically going to be looking at this right side. I know that I'm not going to want to brighten the left side anymore. So I'm basically going to, touch that little thing down there and you get your histogram. I still got this one little spot there just above that little crowd of people. That's really pretty dark. But let's do it a little bit more. I know I'm blowing out the rest of it, but let's do it a little bit more. It really needs a lot of brightness there. So you can't get rid of all the shadows, but I'm going to do that right there. Let's do brightness as 75. Okay, can accept that. Now I'm going to go in to my view edits, and I'm going to go into Tune Image, hit the brush, and I'm going to put my brush on where you can see what I'm doing. And again, you don't really want that to, I'm going to deliberately do it in the sky just so you can see. By the way, I think the part that really needed that is right there. I'm actually going to reduce it down to about 75 to get these people right here. Okay. I didn't want that to be quite as bright. I'm going to do a little bit there. I really tweak a lot. You'll find that out when you watch me that I do this. I thought I had my messages set where I wouldn't get alerts, but I guess I'm getting them anyway, notifications. Let's see. Let me get this. What am I doing? That notification distracted me. Let's see. I think I'll do about 75% right there. The part that really needed. Now, whoops. Yeah, I tap that and tap it twice, and that pulls it back out again. Now, I'm going to deliberately, well, no, I'll do that later. No, I think I'll deliberately do it. Now, I'm going to show you if I go too far out, and I'm going to make that go into the sky. I think you'll see what I mean about the sky. I'm going to fix that. Now, do you see that halo around the bamboo roof? Do you see how that has kind of like a halo? You want to avoid that. That does not look good. So let's go back in and let's fix that. I deliberately did it here so you could see how much, oops. Let's get that down to 0. Okay, I do not want any of that bamboo things to show up into the sky. That is just really going to, I did not mean to do that, but you can pinch and zoom if you want to get really good on your, I think I had that about 75. Still, I think that's going to show that halo. Actually kind of does it anyway to some extent. There. What do you think of that? You still see a minor halo. That actually was in the original if you go back and look at the original. And that's not your fault. That's just kind of the things that happen. Now, if you look, you can see the people on the other raft much better now. So we go like that. We hit the check, and I think we're good. Now, if you want to, we can just go in, and I wanted to show you what Tune Image can do here, because I want to show you sometimes, you see that little magic wand there? If you press on that, it will do an automatic adjustment. It did brightness of +1, contrast +1, set. You certainly don't really need to turn up the saturation. I think saturation is good. You don't want to do that. It usually doesn't, but it did warm it up a little bit with a +5. And that's kind of what I'm using. Usually when I use that, I'm usually doing that just so I can get that little bit of warmth. Does a little bit of color, white balance correction.